part of Kenya. They now make their way to Garissa, where they are expected to hold campaigns later today. So those are live images that we are now bringing to you. Our cameraman trying to get his best shots through that fence here, but you can see the necessary protocols around the departure of the president, the red carpet, etc., the security forces around him, and of course the vehicles that have brought him to this airstrip. That is what we have at the moment. He's already made his way into that aeroplane, and shortly they will be departing for Garissa, a flight that should not take too long, less than 30 minutes or so, and thereafter we should be able to get you images from that other side as well. But Jubilee saying that they will continue campaigning. They have been doing so over the weekend, and NASA also holding a rally yesterday in Mombasa. Tomorrow slated to hold another rally in Meru. Different messages nevertheless, but both teams still meeting their supporters, seeking to garner support for what they believe to be right. Jubilee saying elections will happen on the 26th. No matter what happens, we are following the interpretation of the Supreme Court in regards to the fact that elections must take place within the next 60 days. And of course, IEBC then gazetting the 26th of October, while NASA, on the other hand, are saying, wait a minute, the Supreme Court also asked that illegalities and irregularities that took place in the past poll must be looked at and verified, that the elections must be conducted while looking at applicable laws within the current laws as well. And NASA say that they are not satisfied that sufficient changes have taken place for that to happen. So that is a message that they are sharing with their supporters. But nevertheless, this is the situation now at the Nyeri airstrip. Live images that we are bringing to you with a little under 10 days and counting to the October 26th poll, a poll that the whole world is actually looking at and wondering how will Kenya navigate out of this current situation that the country finds itself in, of course precipitated by the August 8 polls and the subsequent Supreme Court judgment that sent Kenyans back to the polls, with many asking how will the upcoming polls, or what will the upcoming polls look like. Jubilee saying that they will happen as expected. NASA have, however, described them as circus. And that is the situation right now. We cross over to just outside the Anniversary Towers, where IEBC headquarters are located. Hassan Mugambi on standby. I can see a lot of security, or I could see that a bit earlier on in some other shots. Hassan, good morning. What is the situation outside that building, which we've been closely monitoring for the last month or so?
Well, a very good morning to you, Wahiga. The situation across here is there's a tight security. The men and women in uniform have already been deployed here to sort of ring fence the Anniversary Towers, where the demonstrations are expecting to be heading here any time from now, when they will be kicking off. But then again, what we're trying to do right now is just to paint a picture of how the Anniversary Towers has been protected. We have officers here in their numbers who have come to this particular place, which is the the ground zero for today's demonstration. Remember that the NASA brigade are called on their supporters to be showing up in the streets of Nairobi and other towns within the country on a daily basis. And this is the kind of situation you see here. Men and women in uniform, anti-riot police officers who have showed up here since morning. And yes, it has been, and that is the kind of situation we have had here since morning. Just trying to walk you around the kind of security that is here, actually, after the private security guards that have actually manned the entry to this particular building. Is the business is going on as usual here inside the Anniversary Towers. Just to walk you through and what to expect, or sort of what what will we see inside the Anniversary Towers. And otherwise very, very busy, place of work here for a lot of offices, up to and including the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, which some of the NAS leaders want some of the officials here out before they can consider doing or taking part in an election. This is how the situation is. Otherwise, businesses have already opened that are here inside the anniversary towers, but then again, the businessmen who we got to speak to earlier on, they were telling us that they suffer a lot in as far as the frequency of customers here in this particular place, especially after the demonstrations have been called here in Nairobi. And as we can see here, this is the rear entry of the anniversary towers. In just across the road, we can see a contingent of police officers armed to the teeth, so to speak, with the anti-riot gear, ready to get to combat any form of disturbance of peace from this particular place, Wahiga. And just to walk you through, just that we cannot get to speak to them because of protocol issues, but we would have spoken to them, and so that they can just tell us how ready they are for today's demonstration, should it happen that the demonstrators make their way to this particular place. And that is how the whole situation is looking like here. We're seeing a couple of border operators just waiting for clients, as well as Kenyans walking through, going to work, going about their businesses here and there, trying to fend for themselves, so to speak, those that are not taking part in the demonstrations. Remember, we are expecting the demonstrators to be showing up the streets of Nairobi anytime from now. Earlier on, we spoke to some of the organizers of the demonstrations, and they were telling us that they are expecting to see to start the demonstrations today at Uhuru Park grounds before making their way here in Nairobi CBD through Kenyatta Avenue, and of course all the way to Moi Avenue. Then they will be making their way through to the University Way up to the IEBC headquarters where we are currently. And yes, it is quite a state of affair here, and we're waiting to see how that will be going, because we have seen earlier on here in Nairobi, the demonstrations, a very, very tough combat between the police officers and the demonstrators who have showed up to demonstrate here in Nairobi. And just maybe a couple of questions, if we can do that to some of the people who are doing businesses here, so that they can get to tell us how their businesses have been affected. Ujambo brother.
Sana. Yes.
Naomba unieleze umeathirika kivipi katika hali hii ya maandamano ambayo imekuwa ikishuhudiwa katika humu jijini Nairobi, hasa wewe kama mwendeshaji wa pikipiki ambaye uko hapa katika jiji hili?
Tumeathirika manake hatuna wateja. Watatoka wapi? Si wewe mwenyewe unaona. Angalia barabara inakaa kama kiwanja. Angalia pande hii ya kushoto. Angalia pande ya kulia. Hakuna wateja. Na huyu si mteja. Huyu ni rafiki yetu. Kwa hivyo pesa hakuna. Watu ndio mali. Hakuna watu. Si utakuja hapa kuchapwe. Na kubidi upitie nyingine mauka nyumbani. Unaona?
Na wewe jinsi ulivyokuja hapa hii leo, na labda tumeona kwamba maandamano yameitishwa yafanyike hii leo, uogopi kwa kama labda unaweza patikana katika sitofahamu hii ya maandamano?
Tumejipanga. Si tunaona? Pande hii tunaona. Ikitokea pande hii tunateremka, ikitokea pande ya chini juu. Tumejipanga yani. Hata hapa polisi wametuzoea. Wakiona maandamano tuna sign. Piteni hii. Unaona? Tuko hivyo.
Shukran sana. That is one of the business people here just operating a border business, saying that they are ready for whatever it is that comes their way, that the demonstrations have not deterred them from going about their businesses, just to get ready, so that if the demonstrations or rather the protests come from one side, they will be able to just rush towards the other side. And just to look look at the kind of traffic flow that we're having here, not your typical traffic flow for a Monday morning, because this is the University Way, one of the busiest roads inside the central business district here, that has been quite deserted today. We're seeing a free flow of traffic. It is not quite a flow of traffic that you would expect on a typical Monday morning here in Nairobi, being the busiest city inside the country. Now, this is the kind of situation we have here. Very clear roads. Perhaps motorists keeping off this particular stretch of the road in fear of what might become of their vehicles should they be caught in the melee of the demonstration here in Nairobi. In short, that is the kind of situation we have here. Wahiga, I will be handing it back to you unless you have any other question or clarification you want us to be going through it.
Hassan Mugambi, no question or clarification for now. I think your update was quite comprehensive, very detailed. Thank you for giving us those updates. Reporting just outside Anniversary Towers, IEBC headquarters, a place that has been the center of focus for the last couple of months or so, and of course we'll continue keeping our tabs there, and later on, as soon as we get an update, we will give it to you. We had also seen live images from Kisumu where protesters have already gathered in quite large numbers. They're marching together. I don't know if we can pick that up briefly just from Kisumu town. Those who are, there we go. A few, you can see a stone there or two. But for now, the demonstrators or protesters looking largely peaceful, chanting their messages, waving the different some palms that they picked up, etc. And you can see some cars behind them. I'm not sure if that's part of the protesters or just regular Monday morning traffic, but this is the situation in Kisumu right now. Earlier on, we had been told that a few bonfires had been lit in certain parts of the city, but as of now, it seems to have been a few isolated incidents, and this march looking relatively peaceful if you compare or contrast with what we've seen in the past. So I mentioned bonfires. You can see some stuff have been gathered together in the corner there and then set on fire. Those are the images that we have for now. We'll continue monitoring the situation, giving you updates also live from Mombasa. And as soon as we have more updates from those parts of the country, then we will give you those updates. Let me introduce my guest in studio. We've reshuffled just a little bit. We are now also joined by Charles Owino, police spokesperson. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And Gabriel Mubuma, familiar face here, political analyst. Welcome to the program as well. Charles, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Receiving different numbers about how many people have lost their lives from August 8th up until today. One report, this is the Mirage at Dusk report, blames police for killing up to 37 unarmed protesters during the election period. Amnesty International, I've seen a message today where they state in a particular report that over 33 people were killed by police during demos sparked off by the August 8th presidential poll results. My first question to you, is there any truth to these reports that are coming out?
First of all, Maura, I would want to state that we as members of the police service, we have a constitutional mandate and duty to protect lives of everyone.
Okay.
So it is not our interest that any Kenyan loses his life. It's actually sad for us to have Kenyans lose their lives. But what happens equally is that this is a highly tensed political period. And the first important thing is that we would want, first of all, to request the political class, majorly the functions that are having disputes, that they should come up with a way that we don't involve the police much in our political interests.
I fear you're running away from my question.
No, I'll answer.
I'm
not running away.
Back there. Okay.
I'm just making a base
for it. Don't take too long.
Yeah, no, I'll not take too long.
Okay, go ahead.
We can stay here until evening as long as Kenya is peaceful.
No, the families are very busy. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that it is not our interest to have anyone die at all, and when people die, it indicts us in one way or another. But what I can say is that if you look at the current situation, what is going on, demonstrations, picketings, presentation of petitions, is something which is allowed in the Constitution, and there's no question about it. But we are also aware that when you demonstrate, you must demonstrate peacefully, and you must be unarmed in the process. I want to give you just one case because many cases of what has taken place, sometimes some of them is very difficult to explain because nobody will believe it. I think on Wednesday last week when we had demonstrations in Homa Bay, we had an officer beaten up and his gun taken away and burnt. That officer, in ordinary working standards, ought to have defended himself. What helped the officer is that fortunately he comes from the ethnic community that is in Homa Bay, and he pleaded with them in mother tongue. I want to think that if it were not that, maybe he would have been killed. That kind of provocation is not fair. If that officer would have, in that circumstance, used his firearm and killed someone, what would have happened is that nobody would have believed that his life was under threat at that particular time. So the law is very clear that you must protect, you must defend your life if it is in danger. And for that reason, what I can say is that protesters must by all means have policemen as their friends. At the time of demonstration, the protesters should even have the officers walk with them, as long as. Because, like, for example, you've just shown what has happened in Kisumu. You've seen them carrying very big stones. You've
still not answered my question. I've given you adequate time to lay your case, which I think you've done.
Let me answer you.
Is there any truth to these reports that 33, 38?
I cannot talk about the exact numbers, but I know.
What are the police numbers?
Excuse me. What I know is that we lost 2 people in Bondo the other day. I don't know any other person.
As I think about your answers,
No, I'm not thinking about answers.
No,
Maura, just a minute.
It's because I need to take
just a minute, Maura. No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is simple.
Go ahead.
And allow me to say this.
Okay.
That even if it is one person who has died, it's not right for anybody to die.
True.
It's not right for anyone to die, even if it is one person. And that is why we have very clear laws. And in this country, we are very lucky. In the 2010 promulgation of the Constitution, we got a civilian oversight authority in the name of IPOA. So I would request any other institution, whether it is Amnesty International, to liaise with them if they cannot trust our Internal Affairs Unit, and come up with very good investigations. And I want to remind you of something. As police, we don't take general responsibility. We take individual responsibility. And we have no reason to protect any officer who has made a mistake. And at the end of the day, there will be inquiries into the cause of each and every death. And usually what happens with the Amnesty International and National Commission on Human Rights and any other human rights bodies is that when they have released these figures, even when we go to court for inquests, nobody follows up these inquests in court, so that if an officer actually committed an offense, then it should be followed to the latter and the officer to take responsibility.
Thank you.
But we are using these figures for political reasons, and we are not political.
Well, fair enough. Allow me to interrupt you because we need to cross over to Eldoret, Uasin-Gishu County, where Professor James Ole Kiapi, former permanent secretary and 2013 presidential candidate, is on standby. Prof, thank you so much for patiently waiting to weigh in on this discussion. I trust you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, I can hear you very loudly.
Thank you. You've been very vocal on your social media about the state the country finds itself in. Let me read one of your tweets. You say that our society is in deep socio-political turmoil. We must deal with the deep-seated issues to bring healing, justice, and lasting stability. Professor, with your experience both in government and in other sectors, how do we go about doing this?
You know, Waihiga, in 2007, this country was in a very big mess, and the international community and eminent Africans came and helped us out of the situation. And then we came up with a new constitution, and basically we came up with a new order of doing business. And Kenyans became very hopeful because there's a new constitution, a new governance dispensation. Now suddenly we are going back, we are retrogressing, we are going back to even beyond 2007, because look at the political situation right now. We are in a grandstanding like never before. The president wants the election on the 26th, which is next week. The former Prime Minister Raila Odinga is saying no way, there will be no elections. And each side has millions of citizens or followers. One side has 7 or 8 million, the other side has 7 or 8 million. How exactly do we resolve such situation when the leaders are deliberately orchestrating something that is obviously not going to work?
What are some of your proposals, Professor?
Pushing the people.
What are some of your proposals?
First of all, what I want to say is that I want to add my voice and say very vigorously that we need to calm down. We need for the President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga to meet and some other leaders to join, that we can have some very serious dialogue and agree on the minimum conditions that will allow a fairly stable, peaceful environment in order to conduct free and fair and credible elections. It is not possible under any circumstance that we can even conceivably think that we can go and conduct elections right now. The President and the Prime Minister very often meet in funerals and they speak in a very gentle, very amicable way. Why would they not talk when it is about the nation? Why would they not talk when it's about millions of citizens? So I think for me it is a call to order for all leaders of this country, including myself, including the police. Every one of us has to be called out to order so that we can create the conducive environment for that repeat election to take place.
Thank you.
That is what I am very much concerned about, and because where I am, I meet people every day, and they are very disturbed, and people are very tense and fearful.
Okay, Professor. Just another quick one. I know I need to let you go. It's a busy day for you, but it's another day of anti-IEBC demos. You've also spoken about this on your social media. I want to read another tweet that you posted. You asked, are police in Kenya incapable of restoring public order without shooting people? It is the blood we carelessly shed that hinders our peace. We've got police spokesperson Charles Owino here in studio. What would you want to tell him at this time, because he may not have read your tweet?
I want to tell my friend that just this week there were photos going around of young boys who are shot by police. We don't really know exactly what they were doing, and there is no clear explanation from the police as to exactly what happened. Some say that they wanted to raid the police station, others said it was raiding a shop, others say it's something different. All over the world, citizens demonstrate sometimes even more aggressively than they do in Kenya, and the police are trained. They have water guns, they have rubber bullets, they have all manner of tools, and their professionalism. And in fact, if they must shoot, they are asked to shoot to immobilize, but not to shoot to kill. It is senseless to see young people, young Kenyans dying because they just went to demonstrate. I mean, even if they are throwing stones, you can still get them, you can still arrest them, you can still shoot them in the leg so that they know they should not throw stones. But all I'm really saying is that those who are organizing demonstrations must do it in a proper manner. Why is it that in Washington or in Texas you can have millions or thousands of people walking along streets, and they walk to the end of the streets and nothing happens? And why can we not do the same in Kenya, where people can walk from Uhuru Highway all the way to the end very peacefully, holding banners and expressing themselves, and the police standing by watching, and then the day ends and we can analyze about the issues that came about. I really think that we can really all hold some sort of restraint.
Thank you, Professor. If you're not in a hurry, I can allow my panelists to each comment about what you've spoken about, but if you're in a hurry, we can...
I'm not in a hurry. I'm here for that interview. Yeah, I can wait a bit.
Okay, please wait. Let me allow each of my guests in studio to respond to what you've just said. I'll start with you, Gabriel. We'll move along this way so that Charles Owino can now respond to everything totality. Gabriel, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks, first of all, here for having us, and also thanks to the Professor for the comments that he's just made. I think from where I'm seated, I think in all demonstrations, if I may put it correctly, you will always have three types of people. And these I've been able to see almost everywhere, including this country of ours. Number one, you'll have the peaceful demonstrators. Secondly, you'll have the people who are in there for riots. Destruction of property, they find something seated, but and really they just want to damage, cause chaos. And then in the same category, you'll have what you call robbers and thugs, people who will infiltrate a peaceful demonstration. So this is an environment where anybody, whether it's the discipline forces or the police, they will always find it hard to actually divorce all those three groups. And they'll agree with me. So they have a tumultuous task to understand who here is a peaceful demonstrator, who is in here to cause riots, and who is in here, robbing and really injuring people. Because as much as we would say we've had peaceful demonstrators, which I've seen, and we've had, even the doctors, the nurses, they've gone on these peaceful demonstrations. Still, NASA, they've had a portion of their demonstrators who've been very peaceful. Places like I was just saying the other day, some procession in Campus, it was very peaceful. In Mombasa, there was not a lot of things that were destroyed.
Isn't the purpose of training to help police to filter that information that you're giving to us? For me, of course, I wouldn't know how to deal with or how to separate those different groups, but are well trained, and that's something we'll come to.
Well, even the police, it's going to take. It's really hard when these people are conglomerated together, because some will just enter into that procession and be able to do their craziness inside there. But there's something else that we also need to bring to light.
Allow me to interrupt you to refer to the images on our screen, live images now from Mombasa, where proprietors of different shops are shutting down. We're told tear gas has already been locked onto the streets. And so what you're seeing right now are live images of proprietors of different stores who are shutting down, putting everything away for fear that their products might be vandalized, etc. These are live images now from Mombasa. Briefly, I need to bring in
as much as we want to talk about Article 1387.
Yes.
We must also be alive to the Articles 21, where the state has the right to protect me and my business and my property. So, as we move along, if the idea is to be in a peaceful procession, let the police be there, of course, to provide the security.
Yes.
But let not it go overboard, because I've heard people really castigated the fact that they've been restricted or they've been sent to a certain place. And I like the way the professor talks about there are demonstrators even in the first world, like the United States. But you realize they are given a place to picket and demonstrate. They're able to do that, but they cannot bring it in areas where they are now going to infringe on other people's rights. So as much as we want to talk about these demonstrations and whether they are peaceful, and armed, we must also realize they are in one way restricted. In fact, on that article, they are restricted. They are restricted.
They're restricted.
Which means the restriction here in that particular article is that they are peaceful and unarmed. That is a restriction.
Fair enough. Irungu, come in.
I think, first of all, for me, this is one of the heaviest narratives, I think, in this period for me. And the spokesperson, I noticed, did not answer your question. The Kenya National Commission for Human Rights released a report, Mirage at Dusk. It was released a week ago. I have not seen a response from the Inspector General directly to that report. Amnesty International have released a report. But just let's not go there. I don't think it's enough to simply restate your constitutional mandate. It is probably now behoves the police to actually begin to respond directly to these cases. We've seen tear gas going into nursery schools. We've seen protesters run over. We've seen border drivers run over. We've seen live bullets being used, as late as this weekend. We saw architectural students in their first year intimidated, beaten, and threatened with rape in the capital city of Nairobi. This is all very well documented. What I worry about is the only institution that's not producing documentation on this is the police. So my concern, Charles, and we've been on this conversation many times, is I think what's really important now is to recognize that traditional policing mechanisms and strategies are not working anymore. Why do we know this? Because levels of provocation, levels of violence, not just against protesters, but also against the police force, are increasing. So we need new rules of engagement. We need a new standard, a standing operating procedure from the police that does not escalate the situation. And unfortunately, I think at the moment, all we are seeing is an escalation of the problem. I was personally understood the intentions behind the Matiang'i ban, but I was personally against that ban because I think what it did was essentially, first of all, run into very blurred, unconstitutional corridors. But secondly, what it did is it actually put a lid on what is a legitimate protest by a section of the political class. The question that you and I think all the agencies, including NASA, need to be talking about is what are those rules of engagement that would reduce the levels of violence? And I think they're very simple. There's some very practical things, and I'm not sure whether there is a dialogue taking place between your office and NASA at this moment, but if there isn't, let me offer a couple.
Briefly. We
could request, and NASA, who I believe do not have anything to gain from seeing their protesters shot or run over by vehicles or tear gassed 9 times in one morning, for them to actually put some of their protesters in distinguishable clothing. Let them be recognized so that we know this is a protester and this is not a protester. Do they have marshals? Are they managing their demonstrations? Are there designable routes that allow people to be able to demonstrate? I'm not sure whether this is happening, but all I see essentially is a heavy-handedness that does not allow for the expression of the right to protest, nor the right to be free from death and violence and a lack of dignity.
Thank you. Daisy?
Well, one of the things that I want to appreciate is that the police are operating under a very difficult atmosphere. But like you have alluded to, one of the things that happens when civilians go into the police, they are trained to handle certain situations that civilians are not trained to handle, including violent, altercations and how to appropriately respond. Now, one of the things that we have seen is a selective application of the law, because even while we talk about demonstrators and their right to demonstrate, we know that we have seen demonstrators from different parts of the political divide actually being offered the kind of protection by the police where shots are not fired and nobody is killed. Yet we have seen excessive use of force, lethal force, where people have been killed, where people who have no association with the protesters being invaded, because when you have tear gas being thrown into a kindergarten simply because it is within that environment, that remains unacceptable. When you have little children in their homes, bludgeoned to death by police officers and stray bullets, this is unacceptable. So I think that the police are required to operate within the confines and the constraints of the law. Irungu talks about having marshals and all that. I think I saw preparations for one of the demonstrations by NASA at Uhuru Park, where they actually had all these things and they had clear communication to the police. Now, I think that the police are required, when they receive such notice, to plan and to plan accordingly, including for violent altercations with appropriate responses, and those responses need not be lethal force. I hear the police spokesman, and I sympathize with the officer who was beaten up, who pleaded, but I recall during the 2007 post-election violence, we saw an officer confronted by a huge, extremely violent mob, and he began to plead with them and to reason with them and to tell them, listen, this is your country too, this is our country. It takes 1 minute to destroy it, but to build it takes time. And he managed to calm them down. And this officer won recognition. I do not recall his name. But here is somebody who adopted a different approach for a very violent situation and was able to avert, a situation. When the police respond violently, the citizens equally respond violently, because as the spokesman has said, the officer who was being attacked could have responded with lethal force. But then we're also seeing a situation where citizens are saying, when the police respond to us with lethal force, we will also do the same. So while the police are in a very difficult environment, I think our political leaders really need to rein in their supporters and to recognize that at some point we're witnessing a lose-lose situation.
You're sitting next to one political leader.
Yes, and he's my friend, and I respect him greatly, you know. But I think that we're in a very difficult environment right now, and the people who can actually rein in the situation are our political leaders, which is why the call for dialogue is the sober call right now. So we must move away from this political, you know, brinkmanship. We need leadership. And if our leaders don't want to offer us leadership and don't want to have dialogue, one way or another, we will have dialogue. Good. We don't want to have it when we are, you know, in the throes of a crisis. Okay. As one of the panelists you had here at one of the shows said, let's not waste this crisis. We do have a political crisis. Okay. But let's not waste it. Let's not waste it. Honorable Molo.
I want to respond to one thing Gabriel said and then to Charles Owino. And Gabriel was seeking to explain the circumstances under which the right to demonstrate under Article 37 can be constrained, and you mentioned Article 21. What we don't need now, Gabriel, is anybody seeking to legitimize illegal orders. The Matiang'i order is illegal and unlawful. And what we must do is invoke Article 3 of the Constitution. Every Kenyan has an obligation to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution. And that is what we must do. Article 37 is very clear on the right to demonstrate, to picket, and to petition. If you want to limit that right in any way, then you must design legislation, which it would not be difficult for Jubilee to do because they have the majority. Design legislation laying down the circumstances under which you can limit it. You cannot limit the right to demonstrate by decree. You can only limit it by law. And even that law, the way it is designed, must be such that it is reasonable in an open and democratic society. There is no open and democratic society in which you can tell people that you will not demonstrate, in which you can tear gas leaders who are seeking to demonstrate.
I don't think they said you will not demonstrate. I think the order was you cannot demonstrate in the CBD.
That's the point. Okay. You cannot do that. The only thing you can do is that let us agree that if you are going to demonstrate even in the CBD, which routes will you take? That is what you must agree. How will you help us? Help the police protect the demonstrators and make sure that the criminal elements do not infiltrate. As NASA, we do have even the marshals during the demonstrations. But what happens is that the police start by targeting those marshals because they are targeting them as the leaders of the demos. And once the police throw the tear gas and shoot live bullets, then people run helter-skelter. The criminal elements then have the opportunity because there's nothing the marshals can do. They will destroy things, they will steal things as they're running because it's helter-skelter. If the police, once notified, were able to respect that right and invite the NASA leadership to agree on how to do it, then it would be okay. But they don't want to do that because they don't want the demos in the first place. It is not that way. Now, let me come to what Charles Owino said, and he's my friend. And I sympathize with him because he has to defend the indefensible. Charles Owino first is a spokesman for the police. He sits there and he sees his boss, the Inspector General, standing beside the minister, giving an unlawful directive to the police, contrary to Article 245. The Constitution is clear that the Inspector General cannot be directed by anyone.
Why have you not gone to court again? I might feel like I'm repeating myself asking you this question.
We can't ask that. You can't encourage and allow people to do unlawful things, then challenge us. Why are you not challenging? I mean, there must be a limit to going to court. We must agree to respect the Constitution, surely. When Charles Owino says that he does not know how many have died, it is because the police are in denial. They are in denial in terms of those deaths, and in fact they've gone further. Part of what the police now do, and what they did even after August 8th, is to work with body bags, so that those who are killed by the police are not left to be counted. They are taken and dumped elsewhere. You know that some were dumped in Lake Victoria, because they even want to get rid of those who have been killed. And so they're in denial. There's no way Charles Owino therefore can agree to this. But it is true that they are killing people. When he talks of the incident in Homa Bay, ask yourself this. First of all, we saw on TV yesterday, there were people, like in Migori, one person in hospital with up to 6 bullet wounds. A demonstrator with 6 bullet wounds. If you are the policeman who has shot that person and you run out of ammunition and the others catch up with you, what do you think they will do to you? It is a reaction. You must ask yourself the very fundamental question is, why was that policeman with a live ammunition in a demonstration? Why? How did he find himself in the corners where people stay, not even in the streets where they are demonstrating? If they were chasing people with live ammunition. But it is important also to know that it is actually some of the demonstrators who saved him. I'm sure you watched that clip. You should ask, why are the police working with live ammunition? Why are the police infiltrated? We are asking legitimate questions. You are seeing policemen carrying pangas. Are those policemen? Are we actually in a state where you have now allowed informal and criminal elements to wear police uniforms?
Good.
Why are they in dreadlocks?
You've asked several questions. Let's give him a chance now to respond.
Thank you so much. It's nice that I'm here with my age mate, my county, and my friend, my county mate, and my friend Otiende Amolo, and a renowned lawyer. So I'm not worried. I know what he's saying. He knows what he's talking about, and he knows I'm a policeman. And if they're lucky to form the next government, then we'll still work with them. And because you will not change the police. Police has a duty. You can only remove Owino and say Owino was supporting Jubilee. If only you are not intelligent enough to know what I'm doing. But I would like to tell Otiende is number one, that in law there are limits to rights, and you know that, and he's refusing to talk about. He's saying it should be the legislation should be designed. Article 24(1)(b) in that constitution you carry says that as much as you enjoy your rights and fundamental freedoms, you are limited not to prejudice the rights and freedoms of others. And I think it was on that background that it was felt, because all this time people have been demonstrating in the cities, and it was felt fine. One thing is that they always notify police, because for purpose of public order. You cannot write all laws. It's just common sense that there need to be a public order. And when there need to be public order, we need to control maybe the routes, the venues, so that they don't even clash, and that is the basic purpose. So the first thing is that there are limitations. If you want to create other legislations in the next parliament, you can, but the constitution limits rights of individuals. Professor talked about an issue of the way the first world, the way demonstrations are carried out. There's one thing we need to appreciate, that in the first world there's respect to law and order, and respect to law and order just comes in inherently. It is not something that you train people. You don't need to train the community. What you need to do is to ensure that socially you bring people to respect law and order, and as you grow, it is inherent upon you. But you've seen in this country that we have no respect generally to law and order. As Kenyans, you can't direct it to a particular individual. Now, Tiende is talking about
those who say that respect is a two-way process between the police and protesters.
Yeah, fine. For police and protesters, to me,
you said there's no respect. Isn't respect a two-way?
No, I'm talking about not respect to police. I'm talking about respect to
the law.
Yeah, the rule of law.
Carry on.
Generally, Kenyans don't respect the rule of law. Even if you go to the road, the way we drive, the way we do things, we must admit, for us to grow as a nation. So when you want a system where policemen will have to behave like in the first world, then we must inherently also behave in that manner. For example, you will not see somebody in London or in US carrying big stones, walking with it in the streets. It must matter, it may look petty, but it's still an issue.
You've seen demos in the United States in certain neighborhoods where people break into stores. I mean, let's be honest.
No, I'm talking about stones. People carry the manner in which, fine. And if you break into stores, what happened? You want to tell me people are not shot?
Well, there are ways in which
another thing I would like to say, excuse me, another thing I would like to say is that I would want Honorable Otiende Amolo to tell Kenyans and their supporters that there are circumstances when it is justified for a policeman to use a firearm.
Live
It's
bullets.
good, yes. It's good.
When
Excuse me.
are those circumstances?
It's,
Just clarify for us.
it's very clear. The major thing is protection of life, your own life and any other person's life. It is there in Schedule 6A and B of the Police Service Act.
Okay.
It is in law. What we are saying is it is important to tell people the truth. Tell them that policemen can use a live bullet against you. If you make somebody believe that policemen cannot do that, then that is what pushes them to go to an extent where they can be shot. It's important. And people say that, let's say NASA does not gain when a person is shot. Me, I can tell you, when a person is shot, they gain. They get a mileage to abusers, they get a mileage to say there's genocide.
Are you hinting somewhat that they would benefit from that?
Yes,
I think that's not a fair statement to make.
Excuse me. When we have demonstrations which are very peaceful, where people are not doing anything wrong, you find that people are not, the people organizing these things are not happy. They would want to do bad things.
The life of a person.
Excuse me, Maura. I'm very honest with you. I don't want to be dishonest. When we have very peaceful demonstrations, people do not gain the interest they want to push government. It's something that has happened before. He's talking about body bags. I would want to know how many people. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. How many people have you reported missing? Especially, let's say in Luo Nyanza, that you say, because if a person is killed and his body is taken, the person should be considered missing. Yeah. And we should be having those persons who are missing, so that we can be able also to know as a country. Because let me tell you, governments are not permanent. And today I'm a policeman. I'll not be a policeman forever. I'll leave. In fact, very soon I'm sure I will be contesting with him for a very serious sitting.
When you are defending the police,
no, you see, that's what I'm saying something. Yes. And I want to tell you that if you are a truthful person in this country, yes, you cannot win a seat where he comes from. I'll need to carry a twig and abuse people to get it. If that is the case, let my grandchildren get it and not bring it.
Professor, I don't know if you've had a chance to follow this conversation. I have just one question for you before I release you. I can give you a chance to respond.
And I want to...
Go ahead.
Can I just... Wahiga, can I make a couple of points, because I want to finish and then let the panelists continue.
Go ahead.
Point number one, and I'm directing this to my friend Charles Owino. I saw a young man who was already on the ground and who was being overbeaten. You know, police were beating him and beating him. The question is, if the guy is already on the ground, he's already helpless, why is that boy not just arrested? Instead of that, hammering and hammering and hammering. That's point number one. Point number two, for the rest of the people to discuss. I think where we are dealing with a political problem. And we are going to have to sort it out politically. It's not going to be a legal solution. We have to bring the political protagonists together and have some sort of national process to resolve this matter. And I think they need to discuss that, because discussing too much about who was wrong and who was right is not going to help us. What we really need is to really discuss the way out of this serious crisis. On the issue of demonstrations, I think responsibility is on all sides. Those who organize demonstrations must also organize their team in a manner that they can execute that process in a very orderly manner. The police, on the other hand, are not justified under whatever law to be so aggressive, more aggressive than even the people who are aggrieved. Finally, my call to the President of the Republic of Kenya and the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. There can be no winner in this thing, whether we have election on the 26th or we don't, unless we really agree on the basic platform, on the playing field, and we are happy that, okay, we are going to be able to get a free and fair election. It is pointless and futile, and the demonstration can go on and on forever. Finally, IEBC, for me, that institution owes the nation a very serious explanation, because we use 45 billion Kenya shillings to give them a job to do, and they bungled the elections big time. Now they need another 12 billion, and even up to this point they haven't really given us the confidence that they are going to guarantee a free and fair, transparent and credible election. So I really think that all the lawyers, because we have a lot of smart people out there who are speaking and who have been talking all this time, but we now need to come together and find convergence. What is the way out of this? I definitely don't think that going for elections on the 26th under this political environment is a smart way to go.
Thank you so much, Professor Ole Kiapi, former Permanent Secretary and, of course, 2013 presidential candidate, for giving what